Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing my build of the Estes Sasha. It's more decal time. This time we're going to do the top stage. Let's get right to it. There's another one of these white strips. It goes right at the top. I've got my blotting piece of paper towel here ready to go. The top one's basically the same as the bottom stage one that we did earlier. I've got some letters that need to go on. They go vertically. I'm going to do some of these stars, and you get one per face of the fin, and then these things. We'll see how those go. Alright, so let's get down to it. It should be, yeah, the water is quite hot for whatever reason. Not sure why it seems so much hotter, but in any event, I trimmed one face of this a little bit better than the other, so I'm going to put the face that I trimmed better closer to the edge, maybe. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to start rolling the rocket rather than really doing much with the paper at all. I'm slowly pulling it, but most of the work here is me spinning the rocket slowly. Oops. Slowly but surely. Not doing the world's greatest job, honestly. All the fins and those little wooden pegs, I don't know what they're supposed to be exactly, like radar bits, they keep getting snagged. It's mildly annoying. Alright, so first bit off, let's smooth everything out then. Not really sure this is, let's try this end. Paper towel feels a little crusty for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. Let's just get a new one. It felt, I don't know, just kind of crunchy, and it might be, it might be something that's underneath. It could be the finish here is a little suspect. It could be any of a variety of things, but paper towel I can do something about, so we'll take that approach first. And I'm getting a little bit of bubbling here, so I'm gonna wet my finger and gently try to push that out. Yeah. There we go. I'm getting close to the point where they overlap. Yeah, there we go. So, there we go. Alright, first one done. That's great. Next, the SA bit. According to the instructions here, it should go in between two of the strapes. It should go to the left of one of the taller ones, so I can certainly do that. This has actually been in much longer than I would normally leave one. That's probably going to mean it's going to shift a lot, like very quickly, so I'm going to take precautions. It looks like you try to center it along this straight. So I want to kind of midway, maybe not midway. Midway would be a lot farther down. I think that's fine. Let's just make sure that it's like straight up and down. It didn't look that way, at least initially. That looks passable at any rate. There is a little bit of, I don't know if it's overlap there. Could be. Let's try to blot that out. Great. Okay. Let's try one of these now. Now this is going to go, it's going to go on the fin like this, and it's going to fold over the back. So it's going to end up kind of, I'm going to put it on like this and hope that it flops down pretty nicely. And it should, the top end of it should be pretty close in line with the little peg part. So that's what I'm going to use as my reference frame. Well, there went the nose cone. Oh well. I'll have to get that back at some point. Oops. My desk is pretty cluttered, so I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often. Alright. The ones that fold over like this are usually, I don't like having to fold things over. So I'm going to stand this up. You're probably not going to be able to see much here, but I'll try to get something in frame. I'm going to line up the middle part as best I can, and then kind of hope that gravity is kind and pulls it more or less straight down. That's not bad. Smooth it out with my still wet finger here, because it's not particularly smooth. Just be gentle when you do this, if you have to do this. Alright, I can live with that. Let's then blot, get things all set up here. Okay. You know, I think that this might actually be on, it's probably right. I'm trying to look at it and see, based on the instructions, it looks like it does angle slightly in. I was trying to figure out if I had it like flipped, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that's going to be how it goes. Alright, well, let's try to get all these done as quickly as possible. So I'm trying to figure out if it was supposed to go like this or not, but in frame. There we go. But I don't think so. I'm pretty confident that it's supposed to go like this. I'm going to try to put a little bit more pressure on this as I release it, so that way it falls a little bit more smoothly. I'm not sure how effective that's going to be. It was pretty good on this side. This side, no, not perfect, but not bad either. I can live with that. Again, I'm trying to center it based on the peg here. And that's not bad. Work through these as quickly as I can. Again, this is all so much easier when the water is still warm. This one did not fly very well. Whoops. Well, I tore that. I just tore the corner off ever so slightly, and it's probably not going to be noticeable. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I did tear it just a little bit. Yeah, so even with wet fingers, you need to be extra careful, because it's like the thinnest possible plastic you can ever imagine. It is not hard to damage it. And that little piece, I mean, I could have tried to find it and put it back where it belongs, like jigsawing it together, but that is not easy. So I'm just going to deal with the fact that I'm going to be missing a little chunk. It's not really noticeable anyway. Well, probably not. Honestly, these black ones, all the black ones, are so hard to see on this dark green paint. I think it's a little wet again. It's very hard to see. So I would not get too bent out of shape about pretty much any of this stuff, however it looks, because it's going to be really hard to see. That's kind of the bottom line. Alright, let's do a couple of the stars. And then there's one other thing that needs to be done here. Oops. I try to get them to float in the water, like so. If they sink to the bottom, then you have to fish them out, and sometimes you don't, the paper separates, and that's just generally not good. Anyway, the other thing, and if you'll notice on the page here on our image, all the little pegs, half of them are red. That's paint. The instructions suggested that I was somehow to spray paint that, and I immediately thought, yeah, that's just not happening. So the question is, do you really want to bother with it? And I'm going to say I'm going to try. I'm going to try to bother with it. We'll see what happens. I might lose patience with it pretty quickly, but I'm going to try. This didn't really separate at all. There we go. I'm going to try to paint them on, but that's going to have to wait at least until the decals are dry. Alright, so we got these stars. Geez. There we go. Again, I want it to float. The stars, I am going to center. I'm going to try to center like the edge of the star with where the tip of this thing is, and then try to center it in the middle of the fin. I think I got these are probably too far out this way. I think they're supposed to be a little bit more centrally located, and the stars are supposed to be centered on them, but again, it's a model, right? It's just for fun. So if it doesn't look perfect, oh well. You know, this is, I don't build these as pieces of artwork. I build them eventually to fly them, although, I mean, honestly, this one, considering this is a two-stage rocket, two-stage rockets I don't tend to fly a lot of because they, well, you need really good conditions. That's basically been my experience. You need, this folded over on itself. Just be careful when you're doing this, because half the time I end up folding other parts of it back onto itself, and I'm trying to unfold another part, so just, and things will tear, so be careful with that. Anyway, the weather has to be really good to launch a two-stage rocket, unless you have like the world's biggest flying field at your disposal, which would be really nice if you did, but I suspect most people don't. I sure don't. The problem with two-stage rockets is that they are really susceptible to weathercocking. That would be when it's breezy out, or even if it's got the slightest breeze in the world, rockets tend to turn into the wind, because the bottom part of the rocket, that's where the fins are. So the wind pushes on the fins more strongly than it does on the nose cone, and that ends up pushing the bottom with the wind, so that turns the nose cone into the wind, and then the rocket is pointed into the wind. That happens with pretty much every rocket, right? That's not something special about two-stage rockets. The problem with two-stage rockets is that second stage. Really, I mean, it's a problem with anything that has a particularly long burn time, potentially anyway, but that second stage, when it kicks off, if it's not pointing straight up, if it's already weathercocked, when the second stage kicks off, it's going to weathercock even more. So things just tend to get more and more extreme. So it's something really, I only typically fly two stages on particularly nice days, very calm days. It's also, smaller ones anyway, maybe not this one so much, but that first stage, you can lose that pretty easily, because you're probably not watching it all that carefully. You're much more interested in the second stage, because, oh, that's going super high. And that first stage doesn't go terribly high, and then it falls back to Earth. Well, it's easy to lose track of. Something to be avoided if at all possible. It's a good idea to have multiple people spotting when you launch a two-stage. So have somebody who's just going to be watching where that second stage, or the first stage rather, comes down. Ideally, you do this with a bunch of people, and you can have a bunch of people trying to watch the second stage, because the second stage is going to go very high, and you might lose track of it. This thing, according to the package, says it could go up 2,300 feet. I've never launched anything that high, I've never launched anything even anywhere near that high. I usually try to keep it under 1,000, and that's only on particularly good days. And while, I mean, this is a decent sized rocket for a model rocket, 2,300 feet, that is really high. You're going to have a very hard time keeping track of this thing. Not to mention finding it, after it comes back down. If it's gone up that high, it's going to be up there for quite a while. Anyway, all right, last decal. Yeah. All right. Hopefully these are all basically in alignment with each other. I remember I tried to keep the point of the star pointed right at that junction between the fin and the little decoration. So they should all be pretty close, but yeah, they're not bad. All right, a couple straight drops of water, but that takes care of the decals. All right, now I'm going to quickly see what happens when I paint one of these. Now I'm going to use a little bit of acrylic here, a tiny bit, and a tiny little paintbrush. This stuff is water soluble, at least I think it is. Pretty sure it is. I'm going to use the tiniest bit, and if this goes sideways, like it looks terrible right off the get-go, then I'm gonna wipe it right off. I'm also going to start down on the bottom here so I don't hopefully mess with the decals. So I'm just going to paint right on top of it. It's probably going to take multiple coats. I'm not really in love with this paint. I don't like hand painting on general principle, but I mean, this was just assuming that I could paint this at all. I sure wasn't going to be able to do it with spray paint. Alright, all I really want to do with this is get some paint on and make sure that I don't get any in the green. So the coverage here is pretty lousy, but that's all I'm going to do this first round. Just the tiniest bit, get some coverage. I probably shouldn't be doing this at the same time because I don't want to mess any of the decals up because they're still, I mean, they're not dry. So I really don't want to accidentally, nudge them. That's why I'm doing the bottom part here, which is hopefully quite far away from any of the decals that I might bump. Go over this as best as I can. Get the top too. I often forget the top when I'm spray painting things, so hopefully that won't be an issue here. Alright, so that's all I'm going to do right now. I'm going to leave this here for a moment and do the rest off camera. After this is dry, it's probably going to take another coat or two, but the decals are done, so clear coating is the next step. So I will see you after that's done. Thanks for watching.